Hello and welcome back to RPG PhD. I'm Dr. Ben. Have you ever listened to a player describe their character perfectly? The voice, the vibe, the tragic backstory, and then once the scene starts, the character somehow doesn't move. They speak, they emote, they explain, and yet nothing changes in the room. No pressure, no pursuit, no friction. The character feels like a portrait on the wall instead of a person with a pulse. Today I want to offer a fix that does not require acting training, accents, performance confidence, or theater kid energy. In this episode, we're going to use Uta Hagen's Respect for Acting as a guiding lens for building better tabletop RPG characters, for players and for game masters. Hagen wrote this as an acting text, but I'm going to be adapting a few of her core ideas by applying them to collaborative roleplay at the table. Hagen's approach helps take you from describing a character to playing a character who wants something moment to moment. So, whether you're a player who wants your character to feel more alive, or a game master who wants NPCs to stop sounding like lore delivery systems, this episode is about making characters active and engaging. So, let's get into it. Hagen comes back again and again to a deceptively simple claim. Actions are not decoration. Actions generate life. In Respect for Acting, she talks about how physical and verbal actions can produce emotion, sometimes as powerfully as digging around in memory. She gives blunt examples. Banging a fist on a table can bring up rage. Pleading in the physicality of begging can bring tears. Trying not to smile while someone talks can bring out real laughter or a cracked composure. Her point is practical. You do something truthfully with a reason and the inner life often follows. This idea is similar in some ways to Michael Chekhov's psychological gesture. Now, the phrase, the reality of doing, is more famously associated with Stanford Meisner in a lot of acting pedagogy. I'm borrowing the wording as a friendly label here since it names the idea cleanly. Hagen's version lands in the same neighborhood. Stop indicating, start doing. So what does this mean for players? At the table, a lot of roleplay accidentally becomes biography recital. You explain your character's trauma. You announce your mood. You tell us you're angry, scared, proud, ashamed. All that can be good story material, but it still tends to sit in the air like a fog unless it turns into behavior. So here's the Hagen-style shift. Before you speak, decide what you are physically doing while you pursue what you want. Small, ordinary actions work best because they're believable and repeatable. They also give you something to return to when you don't know what to say next. A few tabletop-ready examples. Your paladin is about to face a corrupt noble. Instead of, I'm furious, you say, I keep adjusting my glove at the wrist like I'm trying to keep my hands clean in a dirty room. Then you speak to the noble. Your wizard is scared. You don't announce fear, you do. I reorganize the components in my pouch for the third time, lining them up by texture. Then you ask the question you came to ask. Your ranger is grieving. Again, you do. I keep looking at the doorway, checking the light outside, like I'm waiting for someone who won't arrive. Then you answer the party's plan. None of this requires acting. It's just giving the table a concrete behavior that carries meaning. And here's the secret benefit. When you're doing something specific, it becomes easier to improvise dialogue because you're no longer trying to invent character from scratch every sentence. You have a physical anchor. For game masters, this is gold for NPCs because it prevents an NPC from becoming a Wikipedia entry with a voice. If you only write backstory and motive, you still might freeze in the scene. Hagen gives you a different prep question. What does this person do while they talk? Pick one repeatable action that expresses pressure, desire, or status. Hagen's broader point is that actions can feed inner life. You can lean on that as a game master because you're improvising constantly and you need reliable handles. So here are some examples you can drop into play immediately. A captain who wants control keeps aligning objects on the table into perfect parallel lines. When they lose control, the alignment breaks. A priest who feels threatened keeps touching the symbol at their throat, as if checking that it still protects them. A merchant who is lying keeps helpfully tidying the party's space, moving a cup, straightening a map, always crossing boundaries while sounding polite. One behavior, repeated, slightly evolving as the scene heats up. You could also use the one-sentence tool. If you want a Hagen-style character in a tabletop scene, ask, "What am I doing right now, and why is that the thing I'm doing?" That question moves you from description into action, and action is where characters start feeling real. Once you have doing, the next Hagen lever is purpose. In Respect for Acting, Hagen pushes students toward playable intentions and away from vague internal states. She treats emotion as something that emerges from honest pursuit inside specific circumstances. She does talk about emotional preparation and substitution, so she isn't saying ignore feelings. Her emphasis is that you get reliable, repeatable truth when you can answer in plain language what you're trying to accomplish. That maps really well onto tabletop role-playing gameplay because a lot of flat characters have one common problem. They don't have a moment-to-moment aim. They have vibes, they have lore, they have alignment, they have a catchphrase. None of those tells you what to do when the door opens and the Duke says, "Explain yourselves." So here's the Hagen lens in tabletop terms. Every scene becomes easier when your character has an objective that can be pursued through action. An objective is a concrete outcome your character wants from someone in this moment. Not your life goal, not your overarching quest, the present tense thing. I want the guard to let us pass. I want my friend to forgive me. I want the priest to doubt their certainty. I want the room to see me as competent. I want to end this conversation without revealing my fear. Those are playable. I'm angry is real, but it doesn't tell you what to do. Actors often translate objectives into active verbs. Think of your objective as a verb you can perform on another person socially. So here are 10 verbs that work in almost any role-playing game scene. To persuade, to disarm, to challenge, to reassure, to recruit, to expose, to impress, to delay, to test, to corner. Pick one. Play it for 30 seconds. If the situation changes, pick a new one. This is one of those tools that makes roleplay easier for new players also because it removes the pressure to act. You don't need a voice, you need a verb. I have discussed this before in other acting theory videos, and I have created a verb list that you can download and use in your games. It's linked below. So let's look at player examples. Same character, different objectives. Let's take a very simple situation. Your rogue meets the city magistrate after being caught in a restricted archive. If you choose the objective to impress, your behavior shifts. You speak cleanly, you reference credentials, you show restraint, you offer useful information. If you choose to distract, your behavior shifts again. You ask questions, you redirect to a bigger threat, you create side threads, or you keep the magistrate reacting instead of probing. If you choose to corner, your behavior would shift again. You point out contradictions, you demand specifics, you press on procedural errors, you force the magistrate onto the back foot. Same rogue, same stats, same backstory, different objective. Suddenly the character feels alive because they are moving. And notice what happens. Emotion shows up as a byproduct. The to corner version might feel aggressive. The to impress version might feel controlled. You didn't chase the emotion directly, you chased the objective. That's an extremely Hagen way of thinking about it. Now let's look at some game master examples. When an NPC enters a scene, you don't need a 10-page history. You need who they are in relation to the party right now, what they want from the party right now. So for example, the innkeeper. One objective might be to keep a dangerous secret hidden. When you get close to the truth, their friendliness turns procedural. House policy, can't have guests back there. Owner's orders, said with a smile that never quite reaches the eyes. Another objective might be to recruit muscle. They offer bargains, they flatter, they hint at local threats, they frame the party as needed. Or another objective, to test the party. They ask leading questions, they watch reactions, they accidentally mention a taboo name to see who flinches. Same innkeeper, different motive in the moment, different behavior. You can break this down into a one-line table prompt. Here's the question that keeps this tool relevant. What do I want from you, and what am I doing to get it? That question turns roleplay into pursuit, and pursuit turns roleplay into story. Now we get to the Hagen idea that people love to argue about, substitution. In Respect for Acting, Hagen describes substitution as a way to make the imaginary circumstances feel personally immediate, so the actor can behave truthfully inside the scene. The goal is presence and specificity, not emotional fireworks for their own sake. A modern summary from Backstage puts it in a way that I really like. Substitution is about putting yourself convincingly into the circumstances of the performance, and it doesn't have to mean importing the biggest, most defining moments of your life. And there's an important historical footnote. Later writing about Uta Hagen notes that she moved away from the word substitution and preferred the word transference, partly to discourage a trap where actors disappear into private memory and leave the world of the play. That warning is useful for tabletop as well, since the table is collaborative and shared. So here's the tabletop problem substitution solves. Sometimes you know what your character wants. You even know what they're doing, but yet the scene still feels thin. The words come out generic, the choices feel fine, but you, the player, feel disconnected from the moment. Substitution is a bridge between the fiction, I'm bargaining with the crime boss, and a real human experience you can access quickly. I'm in a conversation where one wrong phrase could cost me something. You're giving your brain a handle so you can react like a person. Here's my safe adaptation for role-playing games. Hagen is writing for actors. We're in a different environment. Friends, snacks, dice, and sometimes heavy themes. So I call it low-stakes substitution. Instead of substituting the most intense experiences of your life, you substitute in ordinary, accessible equivalents. Moments that carry real feeling without putting you in a vulnerable place. So here are a few examples that almost anyone can use. Job interview energy. You're trying to seem competent while being evaluated. Parent-teacher conference energy. You want to protect someone while also appearing reasonable. Roommate conflict energy. You need to address a boundary without detonating the relationship. Getting caught in a small lie energy. You're scrambling to keep your story consistent. Asking for a favor energy. You're exposed. You're hoping the other person says yes. Those are substitutions you can access in 2 seconds, and they create believable behavior. This is how a player can use it in 10 seconds or less. Name the fictional situation. I'm asking the Queen for aid. Pick a low-stakes, real-world equivalent. This feels like asking a supervisor for a deadline extension. Let that equivalent shape your behavior. You hedge, you over-prepare, you lead with shared values, you choose words carefully. You try to sound calm while you feel the pressure. Notice, you didn't act. You didn't have to do a voice. You just gave your brain a human context that tells you how to behave. Game Masters, substitution is also an improv accelerator for NPC portrayal. When you introduce an NPC, you can silently pick a social situation you understand and then let it color the NPC's tactics and tone. So, for example, the suspicious city clerk. In the fiction, they're checking our papers. The substitution is, this is airport security run by someone having a bad day. So you play them as procedural, nitpicky, easily offended by confidence, briefly softened by politeness that feels genuine. Again, no acting required, it's just a behavioral model. And a safety note here, because substitution can touch real feelings, keep it light unless you know your table culture supports deeper work. If a substitution starts pulling you somewhere you don't want to go, drop it immediately and choose a neutral equivalent. Hagen's later emphasis on transference as a term change is a helpful reminder here. Stay inside the shared world of the scene. When you feel disconnected from a scene, ask, what real-life situation has the same pressure as this moment? One of the most tabletop-friendly ideas you can borrow from Hagen's object exercises is the basic insight that characters become believable when they interact with the world concretely. In acting class, that often means using ordinary objects to generate truthful, specific behavior. At the table, you can get the same benefit without touching a single real prop, by giving your character an imagined anchor object inside the fiction. Here's the move. A PC or NPC gets one signature object that matters to them and one repeatable ritual they perform with it under pressure. The object is not a magic item you're trying to use, it's a behavioral handle. It gives you something to do when the scene heats up, when you're unsure what to say, or when you want to show emotion without announcing it. So here's some signature object examples. A cracked signet ring that once belonged to a disgraced family line. A prayer strip covered in tiny rewritten vows. A map case with an old water stain and one missing clasp. A battered field journal with pressed leaves from places the party hasn't visited yet. A single brass button from a lost uniform. A coin that was paid for in a betrayal. It's kept as a penance or a trophy. And some ritual examples, this might be your character's tell. They check it, so they touches it before answering hard questions like a pulse check. They hide it. They palm it or tuck it away whenever authority appears. They align it, squares it with the edge of the table, restoring control. They clean it, polishes it when anxious, scrubbing at guilt. They refuse to share it, instinctively protects it when someone reaches near. Or they offer it, puts it on the table as a signal of trust, threat, or negotiation. Now, the key. You don't overdo it. The power is in small repetition. One tiny behavior becomes a language the table learns to read. So this is how it plays in a scene. Let's say your character is meeting a rival diplomat. As they speak, I thumb the cracked signet ring, rotating it like I'm trying to find a right orientation. That one action quietly communicates status, anxiety, legacy pressure, and control seeking without saying any of those words. Or for a gamemaster NPC, the witness keeps smoothing the corner of a folded prayer strip, flattening it again and again. When questioned about the crime, the strip tears slightly. They stop smoothing it. They start hiding it. Suddenly, the NPC has an inner life, and you have a consistent way to portray them. You can also use this as the emergency use case. This is the real reason it works. When you freeze mid-roleplay, you can always return to the object. What does my character do with their anchor object right now? That question buys you time, creates specificity, and often reveals the next line of dialogue because the ritual implies what you want, fear, or conceal. A lot of roleplay advice collapses into big adjectives. Brave, kind, cynical, noble, chaotic, broken, loyal. Those words feel meaningful when you're writing a character. They often go vague the moment the scene starts because adjectives don't tell you what to do. Many descriptions of Hagen's approach emphasize specificity as a core principle. The actor finds truth by working with concrete details in the environment and in behavior instead of floating in generalities. At the table, specificity works like an amplifier. It takes an abstract trait and turns it into an observable pattern the group can actually recognize. This is character creation that survives contact with play, because it doesn't depend on your internal narration. It shows up in choices. So the adaptation is you swap traits for behaviors. Instead of asking, "What am I like?" ask, "What do I reliably do?" I'm brave becomes, "I volunteer to go first through doors." I'm kind becomes, "I remember names and I use them." I'm arrogant becomes, "I correct people's wording." I'm nurturing, "I fix small problems before anyone asks." I'm devoted, "I quote a vow or principle before I act." I'm judgmental, "I praise or condemn people in public, never privately." Those are small, visible, repeatable, and they create a character the table can track. This works in actual scenes because specific behaviors do 3 jobs at once. They give you something to play immediately. If you're the "I go first" character, the moment danger appears, you have a default action. They communicate character without speeches. A single choice can tell the whole table what kind of person you are, and it does it fast. And they generate variation naturally. Once you have a behavior, you can modulate it under pressure. The brave character still goes first, yet maybe they hesitate for the first time when the stakes shift. That becomes story. A quick tool you can use, pick 3 adjectives from your sheet and convert them into "I always" statements. So, I always step between danger and someone else when voices rise or weapons come out. I always refuse to leave a wounded person behind. I always offer my help first. I always watch hands and exits when someone is being friendly too fast. I always refuse to accept a deal without hearing the cost out loud. I always offer a smaller, safer plan first. Do that for player characters and non-player characters alike. You'll feel the difference immediately. Another of Hagen's most adaptable tools for tabletop role-playing games is the 3 entrances exercise. In acting training, it's used to prevent that dead, disconnected moment where someone walks on stage and only then tries to become alive. The exercise asks the performer to enter already in motion, already in a lived sequence of actions. A commonly taught formulation is 3 questions. What did I just do? What am I going to do? And what is the first thing I want? And that ports cleanly to tabletop because tabletop RPG scenes have the exact same problem. The camera or spotlight swings to you and you default to, I walk in and say, the character arrives as a blank piece of paper. But here's the tabletop adaptation. Every time your character enters a scene or every time the spotlight swings back to you, silently answer 3 questions. What did I just do? This gives you momentum from off screen. You're not a mannequin waiting to be activated. So some examples. I just finished scouting the alley. I just watched everyone in the room for tells. I just argued with myself about whether to come in. What am I doing now? This is your current action as you enter. It's the reality of doing in motion. So for example, I'm brushing road dust off my coat as I speak. I'm scanning exits while I cross the room. I'm limping slightly and hiding it. What's the first thing I want? This is your immediate objective, small enough to play right now. For example, I want someone to take me seriously. I want to find the letter before anyone notices. I want to keep them from asking the wrong question. When you answer those 3, your entrance becomes less vague and becomes a purposeful beat. It also gives the game master and the other players something concrete to react to, which strengthens the shared fiction. In the Game Master version, this works just as well for NPCs. Before an NPC walks in, decide what they were doing off screen, what they're doing as they enter, and what they want first. And suddenly, the NPC feels like they have a life beyond the party's presence. Alright, let's make this more usable. One of the reasons Hagen has lasted as a teacher is that her work is obsessively practical. She keeps dragging the actor back to questions that generate behavior, circumstances, relationships, what you're doing, what you want, what changes you. So I want to think about condensing that spirit into a single tabletop tool. It's a lens built from the patterns of questions she emphasizes in Respect for Acting. If you're a player, you can run this in your head in 10 seconds before you speak. If you're a game master, you can use it to generate an NPC instantly. First, circumstances. Where am I? What just happened and what's at stake? So the tabletop version is you name the immediate facts that change behavior. We're in the Lord's dining hall. We've been accused. If we lose this conversation, we lose access to the city. This step keeps you inside the scene instead of inside your character's biography. Next, relationship. Who is this person to me right now? Hagen spends a lot of time on the specificity of relationships because relationships change tactics. At the table, you can make it very simple. This person can grant me status. This person is a threat wearing a smile. This person reminds me of my mentor. This person is a witness who could ruin me. If you're a game master, this is where you decide what the NPC assumes about the party. They're dangerous outsiders. They're potential customers. They're useful tools. They're a problem I want gone. And then the objective, the verb. What do I want from them in this moment? Pick one concrete objective and phrase it as a verb. To persuade, to test, to recruit, to comfort, to expose, to delay, to intimidate, to impress. This turns roleplay into pursuit. It also prevents the classic stall where a scene becomes people trading lore until someone gets bored. Next, action, the doing. What am I doing while I pursue it? This is your anchor. One repeatable behavior. Players, I keep scanning exits. I keep touching the ring I stole. I pour water for everyone buying time. And for game masters, the NPC keeps stacking papers into perfect lines. They keep stepping into your personal space casually. They keep smiling, then forgetting to smile. One behavior does so much heavy lifting. It creates texture, it implies inner life, and it gives you continuity. And then change, the turning point. What would make me change tactics? This is the scene stays alive step. So, for example, if they mention my sister, I get reckless. If they offer a deal in public, I play dignified. If they insult me, I try to shame them. If they show fear, I soften. For game masters, this is also where you avoid static NPCs. If the party proves they know the password, the clerk becomes helpful. If they threaten violence, the guard stops posturing and calls reinforcements. If they flatter the Baron becomes generous. You don't need a full decision tree. You need one, if this happens, I pivot. So here's a 20-second example, how it might sound at the table. Let's say you're a player confronting a rival. The circumstances are back alley, they cornered me, my reputation is on the line. The relationship, they're a threat and a mirror. Objective, to expose them. Action, I keep brushing dirt from my sleeve like I'm bored. Change, if they mention my failure last season, I switch to intimidate. Now you can improvise. You have a behavior, you have a target, you have a pivot. If you can answer these 5 prompts, you can produce a character who feels like a person in motion. And the best part is that it's light. You don't need a monologue, you don't need a voice, you don't need acting training. You need circumstances, relationship, objective, action, change, and then you play. Next, let's turn this into a few simple exercises you can try in your very next session. So the first exercise, the no voice scene. This is my favorite because it reveals something immediately. For one scene, everyone agrees, no accents, no special voices, no performance layer. Speak normally. Your only job is to play objective, doing, and the turning point if it changes. The reason why this works is when you remove sounding like the character, you're forced to pursue what the character wants through choices and tactics. And that is where character actually lives. So, for the players, the player prompt is name your verb before you speak. You can even whisper it to yourself, to impress, to recruit, to test, to comfort. The GM prompt is to give the NPC one repeatable action. Finger tapping, overly tidy note-taking, a too long smile, whatever. Then run the scene. If the table is laughing, that's fine. If it's suddenly intense, also fine. The point is, you'll feel the difference between acting the vibe and playing the aim. Next exercise, verb swap. Run the same beat twice. This one is great for groups that enjoy a little rehearsal energy. Take a conversation that's low stakes and quick. Asking directions, negotiating a price, trying to get an audience with someone. Run it once with one verb. Then rewind and run the same setup with a different verb. So for example, you want information from a guard. So you try to charm. You lean friendly, you compliment, you make it easy to say yes. And then you run number 2, to corner. You ask narrow questions. You notice contradictions. You press gently, then harder. Same content, different verb, completely different scene. This demonstrates something Hagen is very serious about. You can't play a personality. You play tactics shaped by need. Another exercise you can try is the private moment. This one comes straight out of acting training culture and is strongly associated with Hagen's teaching ecosystem, including the theater game structure she used in class. Before you enter a scene, take 10 seconds and decide, what am I doing when nobody is watching? So the players, I'm rehearsing what I'll say quietly. I'm checking my gear for the 5th time. I'm folding and unfolding a scrap of paper. So for GMs, for NPCs, the Baron is practicing their smile in a mirror. The guard is rubbing a sore wrist where the armor chafes. The shopkeeper is counting coins, then hiding one. Then you enter the scene and let that private behavior linger into the public moment. The reason that this works is it produces the feelings that the character existed before the scene. You can also do a substitution exercise. If a scene has pressure, confession, confrontation, apology, choose a low-stakes equivalent before you speak. You literally say to yourself, this feels like asking for an extension. This feels like being the new person in a group chat. This feels like returning something you broke. Then you let it shape your pace and tactics. It keeps you present without forcing you into emotional excavation. If your table tries just one of these, you'll notice something. Characters become more than just descriptions. They start becoming agents, people with pressure, tactics, and changing strategies. So now let's talk about some common pitfalls. Before we wrap, a few ways this Hagen lens can go sideways at a tabletop and how to keep it useful. So the first pitfall is turning the tool into a script. If you treat objective plus action like a fixed plan, you can end up forcing a scene forward in a predetermined way. That's rough in role-playing games because the whole point is that other players, the dice, and the game master can change the situation. So to fix this, treat the objective like a compass, not a railroad. If you hit resistance, you don't push harder automatically. You switch verbs. So for example, you came in to persuade the captain. They shut you down. You pivot to reassure, test, or delay. That pivot mindset matches the way Hagen emphasizes playable action inside specific circumstances. The next pitfall, objectives that are too big to play. Seek Vengeance is a great arc. It's a lousy moment-to-moment objective because it doesn't tell you what you're doing in this room with this person. So to fix that, zoom into a scene objective. I want them to admit they're afraid. I want them to respect me. I want them to stop stalling. I want them to give me one honest detail. Keep it human scale and immediate. The next pitfall is one-note verbs that never change. If every scene is to intimidate, your character flattens out. Real people shift tactics. So in order to fix this, give yourself a turning point ahead of time. If they threaten my friend, I shift from to impress to corner. If they show kindness, I shift from to test to recruit. That change step is the antidote to static roleplay. The next pitfall is substitution gets too personal for the table. Hagen's substitution work is powerful, and it can also drag people inward, away from the shared scene. As I mentioned, later discussions of her approach note her preference for the term transference, partly as a way to keep the actor connected to the circumstances of the play rather than disappearing into private memory. That caution translates into tabletop as well. So in order to fix this, stay with low-stakes equivalents. Job interview, boundary talk, asking for a favor, being evaluated. If it starts feeling sharp, swap to something neutral immediately. So that's the Hagen lens for tabletop characters with zero requirement to act. If you remember three things, make them these. First, doing creates life. Give your character one small, repeatable behavior that shows pressure. Second, objectives create motion. Pick a verb you can pursue in the moment. Third, when a scene feels distant, use low-stakes substitution to make the circumstances feel immediate and keep it table safe. Try next session in one scene. No voice, one verb, one behavior, and one turning point, and see what happens. Drop a comment and let me know about what techniques you like to use at your table or theories and techniques you would like me to cover on the channel. If you found this helpful, please like the video, share it with someone who plays or runs games, and subscribe to RPG PhD if you haven't already. And as always, thanks for watching. See you next time.